I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending April the 13th, where the weather challenges were just almost unbearable in its spots this past week for many of our major cattle production areas. The spring blizzards this winter will not quit in the northern plains and parts of the Midwest. Just terrible. And another spring blizzard, probably the worst of the year, no doubt, especially coming this late. For areas in the northern plains, I'm talking spots in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and that blizzard condition. Look at this picture here. That was taken in Sidney, Iowa, which is way down in southern Iowa on the western side there, but quite a ways south, and just bad conditions. You look at how the cattle have suffered in there, and you can imagine they're right in the full swing of calving season, and just losing a lot of calves. 20 to 30% in a lot of areas is not uncommon, and just really tough, and the sacrifices that these cow-calf producers have to make it to get through times like this is just unbearable. And then you look up in Oklahoma, and a year ago we had horrible fires in parts of Kansas and the Texas Panhandle, and this time it's northwestern Oklahoma. Just hundreds of thousands of acres have burned, and it's just it's hard to explain it, but when you get that hot wind blowing, and it's hot, and the wind's blowing, you know, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, and it's just like a blow dryer blowing, and then you get a fire that breaks out in that, and those crisp, tender conditions. There's just no way to put it out, and it just rolls and jumps and leaps, and you don't have time to get anything done. You just barely have time, to evacuate yourself, and a lot of people are losing cattle in there. Just can't believe how many fences are being lost, and a lot of facilities, outbuildings, homes, just everything, and it's just really a bad deal, and those guys are having a tough time in both places. You know, up north where they've got the blizzard conditions, they just got through. You remember the kind of drought conditions they had in southern Canada and up in North Dakota. Okay, they were struggling through that late in the summer, and just had a hard time getting through the winter there. And then now to have that come in and hit, a lot of those cows were kind of weak anyway. That we probably didn't advertise that as much as we should have, but that drought in the extreme northern plains up there really took its toll. In fact, the beef cow slaughter so far for this year is up 10%. So they ended up culling a lot of those beef cows up there. That's 10% over last year, and 19% over the 3-year average. So and that's where most of it happened. And I'm not talking about dairy cattle included in that. I'm talking about beef cows, and it took its toll on those cattle, and they ended up culling a lot of them out of there, or they didn't come up pregnant, and losing all these calves on top of that. I tell you what, it's going to make a difference, probably going to help the market, but at somebody's cost. But let's look at the board for last week. Live cattle futures for June. Monday was up 17 cents. Tuesday down 40. Wednesday down 52. Thursday jumped up there $2.12. Friday down a nickel, with June live cattle ending the week at 103.65, up $1.33 for the week. Your April spot live cattle ended at 116.55, up $4.33. It didn't have a lot of choice, because our fat cattle market on cash basis was at least holding steady through most of the week, and then come on strong late in the week, so it'll be up again big to start the week out. It just about has to. August live cattle futures 104.27, up $1.70 for the week. May feeder cattle opened the week with Monday down a dime. Tuesday was down a quarter. Wednesday up 27 cents, and Thursday jumping $4.42. Friday was up another 40 cents, with your May feeder cattle ending the week at 140.37, up $4.75 for the week. April feeders ended at 139.37, up 405. And look out there at August sitting at 145.10, still probably $10 back of where it was at its peak, but making some big rebounds. And we thought before we got to the wall of cattle that there would probably be a market rebound. It has bounced a time or two, but we're seeing some big gains here, and we're right in the shadow of all these cattle that are saying they're coming, but we don't have a lot of cattle ready right now. And finally, Friday, your fat cattle sellers were able to take advantage of that. Through the week, up through Thursday, they had only sold 30,000 head of fat cattle in the 5-area feeding region, mostly in the southern plains from 117 to 118, and your weighted average on live steers was just about a split between that at 117.47, and that was probably $1 better than what the weighted average was for the previous week. Very few cattle had sold on a dressed basis at all. But then Friday we come in, and after your board was up big on Thursday and everybody feeling really good, slaughter had been pretty aggressive all through the week. And then they started out with Kansas, the ones that hadn't give in, that 117, 118. They ended up selling several cattle in Kansas at 120. So that'd be $2 to mostly $3 better than the previous week. And then Nebraska and Colorado, they've been trading at a premium. Those market-ready supplies, immediate market-ready supplies, are extremely tight there, and they started selling cattle at 122. So the bulk of your Northern Plains live sales at 122. That'd be $2.50 better than the previous week, because remember they sold at 119.5 the previous week, where everybody else had sold at 17. Then we had several dress sales being reported at 190. Be interesting to see how big of a volume we had in the 5-area feeding region, because you remember we had a lot of people that were selling those cattle out for a 2 to 4 week delivery, which was really making it hard for the guys that held them to try to gain any ground. But you'll see who has the last laugh now, because there was a lot of people that was selling cattle for $1.14 a couple of weeks ago for a 2 to 4 week delivery. Now the guys that held tough getting $1.22. Serves them right. Box beef cutout values drifting lower, continuing to. We think that this past week was probably the bottom. Actually, Friday was a little bit lower than your average trade for the week, but we don't know. It may be one more week here, because the weather's just been so crappy. And up in the Northeast, they haven't started getting their grills out yet, and nobody's enjoying any good weather. So down in the Southwest and the Southern Plains, it's just been windy and miserable. You'd be scared to death to pull your grill out in those kind of conditions. And it's cold up north. Heavy population areas haven't had any good weather, so we may see another week of down box beef before it starts to climb, as these retailers start filling their shelves and get ready for people that are getting into the grilling. And as we get close to some of these holidays, graduations are coming up, Mother's Day's coming up, we've got Father's Day, Memorial Day, everything lining up, so we'll have some good demand for grilling. But your average trade for last week's in choice boxes, $213.34. That was down $4.07. And like I said, Friday's end of the week trade was a little bit lower than that. Selects, the average trade for last week, $201.13, down $6.45. And also your select trade on Friday was a little lower than that, but your choice select spread at $12.21. Cash feeders had a great week. You look at your real-time index on Beef Market Central, ended the week at 138.04, and that was $2.45 higher than it ended the week the previous week. And that goes right along with your trend for the week, and your cash cattle auctions there firmed to $5 higher. So that 245 was kind of a split between that, but it was spots sharply higher. And especially in some of those markets that didn't have a sale the previous week, or it had a down market, or hardly any cattle the previous week, like many of our big volume sales did. But we gained back a lot of ground there, and I mentioned it on our last visit there on Friday's report. Ogallala Livestock Auction probably had the hottest sale that we've had this spring yet. and just that's way out there in western Nebraska. They have a lot of good cattle out there, but they just really had a monster sale, with the board being up big on Thursday when they had their sale, and then a lot of people, you hadn't been a lot of feeder cattle moving the last several weeks, and people were scared to sell them, and they're just weather and everything else, but everything just hit perfect at Ogallala on Thursday. And you look at these this sampling of load lots and bigger strings of cattle that come through on Cattle Market Central there, and pick out a couple of those. 86 head of 610 pound steers bring 196.50. There was 74 head in there, weighed 721 at 165, and just really excited to have Ogallala on there. I support all the cattle auctions. I'm a sale barn guy, sale barn junkie, self-proclaimed, been in and around them all my life. Ran one for a while there with my dad when he was alive, and just support all the sale barns. Nobody will support the sale barns more than me. A little bit of extra support for these markets that are reporting in to Cattle Market Central, helping put that real-time index together. It's free. You don't have to broadcast with us to do it. You can be broadcasting with somebody else to do it. You don't have to broadcast at all to do it. And but we just like to pull that information from the block there in real time, and pump it back out to people, and advertise your market while we're doing it. You see the cap behind me. I don't always do that, but F&T Livestock, I mentioned them last week, and John and Jim Browning there run that sale, and they sent me that cap and said, hey, put it up there on your desk, and we'll let people look at that a little bit. And talking about reporting the markets in, F&T is a DV auction broadcaster, and we started explaining to them how we're pulling this real-time data from the sales, and they said, well, how's that work? And I said, well, it comes from your clerking software in your computer system at the sales, where you put that in. They said, well, it's probably not going to work because Jim built it himself. And by looking at them, you wouldn't think that they were computer guys, but Jim built that clerking software himself, and it works perfect. And that's how easy we can make that come in. As soon as the cattle go through the ring, the clerk hits enter on that sale, bang, we got that. And we'd like to get more sales in there, and we're getting more all the time. Mention another market we don't talk about very often, but we got real-time information on Friday. Was the Cottonwood Livestock Auction in Cottonwood, Idaho. 110 head of 801 pound steers out in Idaho bring 135.75. And that's a look at your markets from my home DV auction office here in Canyon, Texas. We'll talk to you next week.